How well does a Smiley 5/8 slim duck perform in the real world or under scrutinized test conditions? The only way to find out is to watch this video. So please take a moment, kick back and relax, and watch this video to the end so you can see how well it did. My name is Dave. I'm with Ham Radio GMRS Test and Review. My call sign is N8DAV, and the motto for my channel is one test is worth 1,000 expert opinions. So today we are testing the Smiley 5/8 Slim Duck on the 440 megahertz band or 70 centimeter band. All right, and this is something that a lot of people have been asking me about, so I hope that there's some great expectations and a lot of perception about this particular test. All right, so let's get into the specifications. This is the 5/8 Slim Duck 440. It is basically tuned for 440 megahertz plus or minus 5 megahertz. The antenna is 4¾ inches long. It's a flexible antenna covered in rubber and plastic. I chose the BNC male connector to be put on the bottom, just like this. And but you can choose from any of the connectors that Smiley sells that goes along with it. It just screws onto the bottom. The specified power is not specified maximum power at all. They also don't specify if this is resident or any particular wavelength on any of the bands. So there's absolutely nothing stated for this antenna. It does state that it has 6 dB gain, which is quite a bit, especially for a smaller antenna like this one. Now this is more of a mid-length. I don't consider it a stubby antenna since stubbies are usually 4 inches or shorter, and that's my specification, nobody else's. And so next time and I think you probably want to know how much I paid for this, don't you? Yeah, let's see. I paid $27 including the connector. The connector is always an extra buck, so it's probably a $26 antenna plus the $1 for the connector. All right, so when we come back, we're going to start our testing. Be right back. And by the way, I forgot to show you the packaging. So here's the packaging it comes in. All right, and this is the typical Smiley packaging. Now this red thing over here along the side has little check boxes on it, and it states that it's a 5/8 Slim Duck. And of course, you can see here in the red box right here that it's 440 megahertz. All right, so you can see all the different types of antennas that Smiley actually makes and puts out. All right, I'll be right back. If you like this video, please consider liking it and subscribing to my channel. I would really appreciate your consideration in that respect. And if you want to see more of my content, please click on the bell icon so you'll be notified as soon as I put out something new, which I do usually approximately twice a week. All right. Thank you very much again for your consideration. I appreciate it. All right. Our first test for the Smiley 5/8 Slim Duck 440 antenna is SWR using the SWR power meter. Now, I've already established a baseline with my test bed this morning. I use a signal stick, and if I get 1.1 to 1 or less on the test, then I go ahead and say that my test bed is working correctly and I've established that baseline. So here we are using the Smiley antenna, and we get an SWR of 1.41. So I always run 2 SWR tests. The second one always uses the NanoVNA antenna analyzer. So when I turn this on, you will see that it'll default to 2 meters, so don't be surprised. Don't be upset. As you can see, we got a terrible 2 meter SWR, but we are going to be testing on 70 centimeters, just like we're supposed to. All right, and we always test at 445. All right, 445, we have 1.997 SWR. All right, next test is the field strength test using the antenna on my UV Pro at maximum power with the 100% charged battery. at a prescribed distance. Here it is with the Smiley 5/8 Slim Duck 440 antenna. Now at the end of this video, I will go over the results of the field strength, compare it to other antennas that I've tested previously. All right, here I am back out at Fox Glen Park. This is my favorite place to test all these antennas, stubby, mid-size, and full-length HT Walkie Talkie antennas. I also like to test my HTs here too. So I'm approximately 2.6, 2.7 miles from my shack as the crow flies. I have, between me and my shack, I have a bunch of trees as obstacles, one house that is also an obstacle. I also have a bridge overpass, a partial hill, also blocking my path to the shack. So what I'm going to do is I'm recording the other radio back at my shack so we can see what the S meter reading is back there, so you can get an idea how much this Smiley 5/8 Slim Duck antenna how well it can hit the radio back at my shack and how well it can receive the return signal from my shack back to here. And I'll tell you what the S meter reading is when I do the test. All right, so as I always do, I always consider this an excellent test if I get back very little to no static whatsoever. If I get some static but still good clear modulation, I consider that a good test. If I get a lot of static but still readable modulation back, I consider that a fair test. And then if I get a lot of static with very little to no modulation, or if I can't hit the repeater, or if I can't hold the repeater open once I do hit it, then I consider that a failing test. All right, so here we go. I'm going to do the test now with the Smiley 5/8 Slim Duck 440 antenna on 445 megahertz. This is N8DAV testing 1, 2, 3, 4. I am testing the Smiley 5/8 Slim Duck 440 antenna. This is N8DAV testing 1, 2, 3, 4. I am testing the Smiley 5/8 Slim Duck 440 antenna. Well, I consider that an excellent test. I got a little bit of static, but not much. Modulation was great, and the S meter reading was 8.5, which is really, really good, especially for an antenna that's only 4 3/4 inches long, so just barely above stubby status. All right. So next time you see me, I'll be back at the shack and we'll review all the test results and I'll give you my opinion, which never means anything. All right. All right. I'll be right back in just a minute. All right. Back at the shack. All right. I have this Smiley 5/8 Slim Duck 440 antenna on my UV Pro. It worked really, really well. But let's find out what the exact numbers are here. On the power SWR meter, it came up with an SWR of 1.41 on my test bed. Using the same test bed, I got a 1.997 using the NanoVNA, which is also very good. As you know, I consider anything under 3.0 for an SWR for an HT antenna to be excellent. On the field strength meter, we got a plus 1.8 dBm, and that is also excellent. That's about almost as high as my meter goes. So, you know, it should do pretty well out in the field. And so let's take a look and let's see what it did out in the field. When I did the modulation test, I came up with an excellent test. It transmitted right here to the shack, and when it was retransmitted back to me, I got very little static, and modulation was nice and clear. Everything was good. But let's see how the S meter readings did. On the S meter readings in reception, that's in other words from my shack to the Smiley 5/8 Slim Duck out in the field, we got an S meter reading of 8.5. That's about as high, I think, as I've ever gotten. So that's a pretty darn good reading there. And then to transmit back to the shack was 7.75 S meter reading, which is great, but it's not quite as good as the 8.5 that we got. So what does that mean to you? Well, I'll tell you. I like this antenna. I think it's an excellent antenna. I think that it will become a big part of my stash of antennas. I only keep the best ones, and I think this is one of the best ones I've tested so far. So it's an excellent antenna. I highly recommend it, but as you know, my opinion means nothing because one test is worth 1,000 expert opinions. All right, that's the Smiley Slim Duck 5/8 Slim Duck 440 antenna. It's been tested and reviewed by me, Dave, at Ham Radio GMRS Test and Review, and trying to say 73. So long.